I played Wimbledon and my family came. The whole family was out of the country.
Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta. Sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa akin.
Kamusta mga kapang Pinoy? Surprise! Excited na akong imbitahin kayong lahat na manood sa mga laban ko sa Mubadala Abu.
The establishment is shaking as Martina Navratilova explodes with fury while Eala forces her way onto center court, igniting what has become a 24-hour fan revolt that changed everything. What is happening in Dubai this week is not just a tennis story, and it is certainly not just about a 20-year-old player trading forehands and backhands under the desert sun. What is unfolding at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships is nothing short of a cultural earthquake, a reckoning that has been building for months and has now erupted spectacularly and violently into the spotlight. Across every tennis forum, sports talk show, and social media timeline, one uncomfortable question is echoing louder than ever, a question many within the establishment would rather avoid. Is this racism? That raw, electric tension sits at the heart of the firestorm. The spark was lit by 18-time Grand Slam champion and tennis legend Martina Navratilova, and when she speaks, the sport listens, but this time she is not whispering, she is shouting. As the controversy intensifies, fans around the world are demanding answers, turning what began as a scheduling dispute into a global conversation about race, power, and the politics of professional tennis. To understand how it escalated to this point, you first have to understand who Eala truly is, not just the simplified label of a promising Filipino teenager or rising WTA star reluctantly acknowledged by mainstream coverage, but the full story behind the young athlete who has suddenly found herself at the center of one of the sport's most explosive debates in years. To truly grasp the staggering, almost unbelievable scope of what this young woman has accomplished, you have to understand the full picture. Because once you do, the outrage suddenly makes complete sense. Eala was born in Manila, Philippines, on May 23, 2005, and from an early age she carried both a racket and a dream that the tennis establishment was not entirely prepared for. Elite women's tennis has long been dominated by players from Europe, the United States, and Russia, and the path for an Asian athlete to break through not just to participate, but to truly contend at the highest levels of the WTA Tour has historically been narrow, difficult, and filled with institutional barriers. Eala made it clear she intended to bulldoze through every one of them. She began turning heads as a junior, electrifying the circuit and capturing the girls' singles title at the French Open in 2022, establishing herself as the most exciting prospect ever to emerge from Southeast Asia in tennis. Her development at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain, sharpened her technical foundation under one of the most respected training systems in the sport. There, her natural athleticism fused with a fierce competitive instinct, creating a player who was not just promising, but genuinely dangerous. Whether the tennis world liked it or not, it was officially on notice. Her transition to the professional tour has been jaw-dropping. She has defeated the reigning world number one, widely regarded as the most dominant force in women's tennis in recent years. Pause and think about that. A 20-year-old from the Philippines stepping onto the court and beating the best player on the planet. She has also taken down Grand Slam champions and top-ranked opponents, stacking victories that would have generated endless headlines had she come from a more traditional tennis powerhouse. Now ranked inside the top 40 in the world, she stands as the highest-ranked Filipina in WTA history. This is no longer about potential. This is reality, unfolding in real time. And then there are her fans, an unstoppable force of their own. Wherever Eala competes, she brings an army. Filipino communities around the world rally behind her with an intensity rarely seen in tennis. Flags waving, chants echoing, supporters singing and painting their faces in national colors. At the Australian Open earlier this year, the scenes were extraordinary, fans camping overnight outside venues for seats, arenas vibrating with chants of Laban Alex, meaning fight, Alex, turning every match into something far bigger than a sporting contest. It is not just support, it is a movement, and it has changed the atmosphere of every tournament she enters. The sound of Filipino chants has shaken the rafters of stadiums that have hosted the greatest players in tennis history. These are not casual spectators showing up for selfies. They are loyal, passionate supporters who travel thousands of miles and spend serious money just to watch their star compete. By every commercial metric that matters, ticket sales, merchandise, television ratings, and social media engagement, Alexandra Eala is box office gold. Which is exactly why what happened next felt so outrageous, why Martina Navratilova finally had enough, and why the tennis world suddenly found itself on fire. Despite her ranking, her giant-killing victories, and the global army of fans who pack venues wherever she plays, Eala has repeatedly been scheduled on secondary courts, not center court, not the main stage, but outer courts that many casual fans pass by on their way to the headline matches. Tournament after tournament, the pattern has appeared too consistent for her supporters to dismiss as coincidence. To them, it feels less like oversight and more like systemic marginalization of one of the sport's brightest and most commercially valuable young stars. The controversy reached a boiling point earlier this year at the Australian Open, when both Navratilova and fellow legend Lindsay Davenport publicly voiced their frustration. These are not fringe commentators. Navratilova is one of the most decorated champions the sport has ever seen and has long been an outspoken advocate for equality and fairness. Davenport, a former world number 1 and multiple Grand Slam champion, is also a respected analyst whose opinions carry weight across the tennis world. When both women independently and forcefully question how a specific player is being treated, it cannot simply be brushed aside as background noise. Navratilova's criticism was particularly sharp. She pointed out the absurdity of placing a player with Eala's commercial appeal and fan-drawing power on courts that physically cannot accommodate the crowds she attracts. Scenes outside Eala's assigned courts this season have been chaotic, fans locked out due to capacity limits, climbing onto walls and fences just to catch a glimpse of the action, security struggling to contain swelling crowds desperate to watch. For many observers, the mismatch between her popularity and her placement has become impossible to ignore, fueling a debate that now stretches far beyond simple scheduling decisions and into deeper questions about visibility, value, and fairness within professional tennis. Fans were left clinging to fences just to catch a glimpse of the action, while the main stadium court showed noticeable patches of empty seats during matches featuring players with only a fraction of Eala's drawing power. Martina Navratilova looked at that contrast and called it what many supporters believe it to be: a double standard that feels rooted in something deeper than simple scheduling oversight. Once the word racism entered the conversation, it could not be pulled back. When observers compared how Alexandra Eala was treated versus players with similar or even lower rankings and demonstrably smaller fan bases, the question became unavoidable. Is there bias within WTA scheduling structures against Southeast Asian players? Is there an unspoken hierarchy that automatically elevates athletes from traditional tennis powerhouses in Europe and the United States, regardless of the objective commercial and competitive case for promoting stars from emerging markets? Many fans believe the answer is yes, and they decided that Dubai would be the moment things changed. Amid all the political and social tension, however, it is crucial not to lose sight of what Eala has actually done on the court at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships. Quite simply, she has been on fire. Her showdown with 6th seed Jasmine Paolini was the kind of performance that should have sent every major sports outlet racing to declare a changing of the guard in women's tennis. Paolini is no pushover. She is a former Dubai champion, a top 10 player, a Grand Slam finalist, and one of the steadiest competitors on the WTA Tour. She entered the match as the clear favorite, widely expected by pundits to dispatch the young challenger without too much trouble. Instead, what unfolded was a masterclass in fearless, aggressive tennis. Eala attacked Paolini's serve with relentless intensity, dictated baseline exchanges with remarkable precision, and played with the tactical freedom of someone completely locked in. The opening set score, 6-1, was a statement. Against a top 10 opponent, it felt almost surreal, delivered with such authority that the crowd struggled to process what they were witnessing. To her credit, Paolini regrouped and fought back in the second set, as true champions do, raising her level and forcing a much tighter battle. But by then, it was clear to everyone watching that this was not just a promising prospect having a good day, this was a rising force announcing herself on one of the sport's biggest stages. The second set moved into a tense tiebreak, And that was where something crucial about Alexandra Eala truly revealed itself. She held multiple match points and let them slip away. For a younger or less mentally resilient player, that kind of moment can trigger a spiral. Doubt creeps in, momentum shifts, and suddenly the match that seemed secure begins to unravel. But Eala did not collapse. She reset. She steadied herself. She competed with remarkable composure and showed the kind of calm, almost icy resolve that defines elite champions. When the final point was won, she closed out the tiebreak and the match with authority. The crowd exploded. Filipino supporters, packed into every available space around the court, erupted in celebration. It was not just applause. It was a wave of emotion that rolled through the venue. The Filipino fan experience is rapidly becoming something WTA tournament directors will have to seriously account for as Eala's ranking continues to rise. This is not a temporary surge of attention. If anything, the visibility generated by the controversy in Dubai has amplified her profile, energized her supporters, and strengthened the commercial case for positioning her as a marquee attraction wherever she plays. Ignoring that reality is no longer viable. Organizers at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships learned that lesson the hard way. More broadly, the episode raises uncomfortable questions about whether the WTA Tour's scheduling systems are truly suited for the modern era. In a world driven by social media, a single court assignment can transform into a global flashpoint within hours. The old model where a small circle of tournament officials made opaque decisions with little public explanation feels increasingly outdated. Today's fans have access to statistics, broadcast metrics, and digital platforms that allow them to mobilize instantly and at scale. The Eala situation demonstrates what can happen when scheduling decisions appear disconnected from competitive merit and commercial reality. If there is a silver lining in all of this, it may be that the controversy has forced a broader conversation about transparency, fairness, and how emerging stars from non-traditional tennis markets are integrated into the sport's biggest stages. Whether the establishment is ready or not, the landscape is shifting and players like Eala are at the center of that transformation. The conversation is no longer happening in whispers, it is out in the open. Martina Navratilova ignited it, the fans amplified it, and to their credit, the organizers at the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships responded. Even if that response came under intense public pressure rather than as a proactive acknowledgement, the tennis establishment has now been forced to confront the possibility that its decision-making processes contain blind spots, and that those blind spots may have caused real harm to players who deserved better. It is an uncomfortable reckoning, but a necessary one. The timing only adds to the drama. The center court announcement seen by many as vindication for the fan campaign arrived at the exact moment Alexandra Eala is playing the best tennis of her young career. She is not just receiving the spotlight, she is stepping into it while in peak form, facing a top-4 opponent who has shown visible vulnerability on serve. The narrative feels almost cinematic. This clash between Eala and Coco Gauff carries the potential to become more than a match. It could be a defining sporting moment discussed for years, not only within tennis but in broader conversations about identity, representation, and what happens when an athlete from an underrepresented nation finally receives the stage she has earned and then seizes it completely. History has given us moments like this before. Jesse Owens at the 1936 Berlin Olympics, defying ideology with performance. Naomi Osaka at the 2018 US Open, navigating triumph amid controversy. Manny Pacquiao rising from poverty to global boxing icon. These are events that transcend sport and enter cultural memory as symbols of possibility and perseverance. Eala's story is still being written. She is only 20, and this may be just the beginning of what could become one of the most significant careers in women's tennis. But this week in Dubai already feels larger than wins and losses. There is also an added layer of complexity surrounding Gauff. She has long presented herself as an advocate for justice and equity, speaking thoughtfully on social issues and using her platform with intention. Yet here she stands on the other side of a narrative centered on whether the establishment supports Asian players as readily as it does athletes from traditional tennis powerhouses. Gauff, now a Grand Slam champion and world number 4, is undeniably part of that establishment. Whether she embraces that label or not, She represents its upper tier, an American star stepping onto center court against a player who had to fight for that very placement. Gauff is perceptive enough to understand the nuances of this moment. From her comments about Eala's fan base and the charged atmosphere expected on center court, it is clear she respects what is unfolding. She is not approaching this as a routine match or assuming entitlement to the spotlight. She knows she is stepping into a contest weighted with narrative momentum, cultural symbolism, and crowd energy that may tilt heavily toward her opponent. For Eala, the opportunity feels almost too perfectly scripted. After being sidelined and treated as a secondary attraction, she now stands on the tournament's biggest stage, backed by fans who organized, mobilized, and demanded recognition on her behalf. Across the net stands the world number 4, a player accustomed to prime scheduling and global attention. It is a moment charged with symbolism, a rising star from a historically marginalized tennis nation facing a representative of the sport's established order under the brightest lights available. And whatever happens when the first ball is struck, this chapter has already ensured that Eala's presence in the sport can no longer be ignored. For years, her opponent has received primetime billing and center stage treatment, yet now arrives after a shaky performance that included 16 double faults and a near upset against a much lower-ranked player. If this were a movie script, critics would call it too convenient. But this is real. This is unfolding right now. And center court in Dubai is about to host a quarterfinal that the entire tennis world will be watching. Consider what a semi-final run or even a final would mean for Alexandra Eala, for Philippine tennis, for Asian representation in the sport, and for the WTA Tour's commercial future in one of the fastest-growing sports markets on the planet. The Philippines is home to more than 110 million people, a nation deeply passionate about sport and long waiting for a tennis star of this magnitude. Television ratings in the Philippines for the Dubai Duty-Free Tennis Championships have reportedly surged during Eala's matches. Social media engagement from Filipino fans interacting with WTA content has skyrocketed to unprecedented levels. This is not merely heartwarming, it is commercially transformative. Tournament directors, sponsors, and broadcasters should be competing to place Eala front and center at every opportunity. Not only because it is fair, though it absolutely is, but because it makes undeniable business sense. The fans in Dubai have effectively done the WTA a favor. They have demonstrated, loudly and unmistakably, that there is a massive, passionate, commercially powerful audience ready to be embraced. And embracing it begins with treating Eala like the star she has already become. So here we are, Dubai 2026. A 20-year-old from Manila playing the tennis of her life on center court before a sold-out crowd chanting her name. Across the net stands Coco Gauff, a former world number 1 and Grand Slam champion, carrying questions about her serve and the complicated weight of being seen as the establishment favorite in a narrative that has shifted dramatically. Martina Navratilova is watching. Lindsay Davenport is watching. The Philippines is watching. The WTA is watching. At the heart of it all remains the question raised at the beginning. Were the scheduling decisions Eala faced simply careless oversight, or do they reflect deeper systemic issues about how the sport values players from non-traditional tennis nations? That debate will continue. But what cannot be denied is that this moment transcends rankings and scorelines. It speaks to visibility, opportunity, and what happens when an athlete who was nearly sidelined demands the spotlight and earns it. This is why sport matters. Not just for statistics and trophies, but for the stories, the tensions, and the moments when overlooked voices rise and refuse to be ignored. Alexandra Eala is writing one of those moments right now. And the world would be wise not to look away.
Best moment, I think, was the happiest I've ever been was winning first Wimbledon. But again, my family wasn't there. We couldn't share it. I didn't even know if my
Yeah, I saw the stadium was really full. I looked up and there was Filipinos for days. So it's really such a blessing to.
And then just globally, do you have a sense of, like, sorry, I'm not trying to give you an ego here, but like if you look at the numbers on YouTube for like the pre-tournament press conferences, how much people watch them?